this is the one I've been wanting to talk to y'all about all day right here, man. This is amazing. It's Trap 6 Phases of Wealth. I definitely want y'all to get y'all pen and y'all pad together. I was listening to a guy today on CNBC. He talked about this looks like the roaring 90s. I had never heard of that before. You heard of that before? I had never heard of the roaring 90s. I had heard about the roaring 20s, which was 1920 to 1929 before they had the crash, but I never heard of that. So I went and looked it up. I went and looked up what was the roaring 90s. And first of all, anything that's roaring, so I realized that it came about a couple times. There was the roaring 20s, the roaring 90s, and they didn't call the 2000 that. But roaring is a period of economic prosperity when rapid society growth and culture change is happening. The mood in the culture is exuberant and full of optimism, but also we can see growth in the up and coming citizens. So from 1920 to 1929 was the roaring 20s. The roaring 90s were 1990 to March 2001. And then at another period between 2009 and 2020. So there's three phases: 1920 to 1929, 1990 to March 2001, and 2009 to 2020. These periods represent new income, falling unemployment, and rising stock prices. So I challenge y'all to go look up the roaring 90s or roaring anything so you can go see what are some of the connections that you can see in the economy then and in the economy now. Why? Because we always know that what? History does what? It doesn't repeat itself, but it always what? Rhymes. Shout out to Mark Twain for that. So what I want you to do, and I challenge you to go do something, I challenge you to go see what was the economic event that made the roaring 20s the roaring 20s before the crash. I want you to go see what was the economic events that were going on that made the roaring 90s the roaring 90s. And then that 2009 to 2020, that bull run was crazy. So I challenge you to go look at that. That was the longest run ever. That 2009 to 2020 run was the longest run ever. So I want y'all to go look at that. And the reason why I want you to go look at that is because if you can pay attention to what's going on, understand this. While we do think America is in a weird place right now economically, I do want us to understand that at some point we do come out of this. Right? At some point we do come out of this. And then when you come out of it, you have this roaring stock market, you have this roaring economy. And, don't think that it's always going to go down. Don't think that we won't, it will happen. But the reason why I want you to go do that is because I want you to understand so you can start looking at the similarities and what happened in each different phase of it. And if you can understand those different phases, you can really start to pinpoint when America is going into a new one. These things happen. All right, so let's get into this right quick, man. The 6 phases of wealth. The first one is net negative. And that's when you own less than you owe. Or I could have said owe more than you own. Same thing. Right? You own less than you know. And most people are literally in these first 3 categories. Literally 60% of people are in the first 3 categories that we about to talk about. I really, really, really want y'all to get your pen and your pad, and I want you to write this down. All right? And I want you to analyze where you are and what is necessary for you to get to the next phase. You cannot grow what you do not measure. Let's say it again. You cannot grow what you do not measure. The goal for us right here before we get into is to see where we are. Remember I told y'all, we will make peace with our financial past. You got to realize where you are and say, okay, this is where I am. Truthfully, me, my household, me and my husband and my wife, whatever, and this is how we grow forward. The first one is net negative. This is when you owe less than you own less than you owe, via debt, via credit card, student loan, right? Negative. The next one is net zero. Net zero is you either own nothing at all or you owe as much as you own. Net zero. You don't own nothing at all or you owe as much as you own. Right? This is an interesting place right here because a lot of people don't own anything and they owe just with credit card debt, student loan debt. So it's hard for you to get ahead, right? So there's net negative and there's net zero. The fix to this isn't always just more money. The fix to these two are fixing our financial behaviors, addressing the impulsive spending that we have, addressing the bad emotions around money. Remember, we cannot fix what we do not measure. All right, let's go a little further. So, remember what I said. The first three are where most people live at. The working poor. The bills are covered, but income can't income. The bills are covered by income, but you can't afford no mishaps. You have under $1,000 in savings, no emergency fund, and no investments. This is where most people live at. Most people live here. This is what we call check to check, right? Where you gotta work, and if you miss any bill, if you miss any day of work, you are behind on your bills. You are one check away from being net zero. You are 30 days away from being net negative. Most people live and they go back and forward between these three phases. Well, Trap, how do we get out of these phases? The first thing isn't necessarily money. We always think that money is the first answer. Money is a part of the answer, but the first thing is making peace with our financial past. And what do I mean by that? It means addressing the things that you saw in your past that are now contributing to the same traumas that you're repeating in your current adult life. We got to address them. So we got to stop. And watch this. Some of the things that we do financially, we don't even acknowledge that we do them. What's the word I want to look at? We do them like on auto response. Unconsciously. Involuntary. Thank you, cuz. Right? We do them without even thinking. It's kind of like walking down the steps. And you do it without even thinking. You just know them. And so one of the things we got to do now is, like, in order for us to even move to the next phase, which is security. In order to move to the next phase of security, like some of us got to work from the bottom, net zero. Net negative, net zero, working poor. That in itself may take a while because you got to work through the motions. It's like healing that financial trauma. You got to work through the emotions. You got to be, it's hard when you've been so used to doing things. Oh, I need a vacation. I'm about to go on a vacation. You don't deserve a vacation right now. It's not me being hard. It's not me being hard. This is being realistic. You don't deserve a vacation. Not that you don't deserve one because you need one. You don't deserve one because you're in a process of changing your financial future, right? So mindset, learning how to put a budget together, learning, okay, let's pay this bill down first. What do? You pay down whatever got the most interest first. You pay that down. You knock those cards down, right? You stop spending money on the things you don't necessarily need to spend money on. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not the person that says don't go get a second job. Only if you're going to use the second job or the side hustle to do what? Pay down the bills. Because watch this. This works two ways. As you're paying down bills, you're actually moving the needle toward profitability. Think of yourself as a company. Put a projection on yourself. Our projection is to be net zero by. Our projection is to be working poor by. Our projection is to be insecurity by. Our projection is to be, I'm going to get to the other ones by. Tell me if this is making sense to y'all. Tell me if this is making sense. We teaching right now. We had fun. Now it's time to lock in. I wish we still would have had 3,200 people in the chat right now, because this is the part that made the most sense. I ain't mad. I knew this was going to be that. I'm going to teach this in a webinar, bro. I'm going to go deeper on this. The next one is security. This one, you got your income covers your bills and you have a little left over for emergency fund and savings. Two different things here. I truly believe that you need to have, if you haven't even started investing yet, you know my saying is invest more than you save more than you invest. But that's a phase you got to get to. You can't live so far on the edge to where if something happens to you, you broke. So that emergency fund, that savings is important. These are the two that very few people get to. I created this. These are the few that very few people get to. Financial independence. It's when your income covers your bills, you have a cash surplus or you're net positive. Listen to the word I use, that net positive. You have an emergency fund, you have savings, and you have investments, but not enough to live off. This is my people that got a little savings, money in the savings. They may have a little emergency account of $1,000 or more, and they're saying, Trap, I got 5 shares, I got 10 shares, I got 50 shares, you got enough, but you ain't got enough to live off. This is the independence because you done moved the needle past working poor. And the last one, but not least, is the financial freedom. This is the goal. This is the one we all want to get to. This is when your income covers your bills, you have a surplus, you're net positive, you have savings, which is now considered, watch the word I use here, liquidity or capital. We had a word change. And the reason why we had a word change is because now that savings isn't a savings because you got your investments. That emergency fund isn't the emergency fund because you got your investments. Now you have liquidity and capital to make the investments, and the investments you make now are working toward you funding your life. These are the things. Net zero, net negative, net zero, working poor, financial independence, financially free. I need us to understand these are my 6 phases of wealth. Now, what I need you to do tonight, and that's why tonight was so dope, we labeled this episode Making Peace with Our Past, because we got to see where we are realistically. Trap, this is where I am. Yo, I'm really at working poor right now. Here's my financial balance sheet for my life. Here's my financial income statement for my life. Here's my cash flow statement. I am a company. I am the CEO. My husband is the COO. If you're the wife, however y'all go, you may be better with money than your husband. Your husband may be better with money than you. We're going to take these roles. We're going to work with these roles. Babe, you better than me with money. Babe, I'm better than you with money. Babe, you better at planning than me. Let's make this a priority so we can move through whatever phase we in. And often, I'm going to be real with you, 2 incomes are better than 1. Once we get the family dynamic together, it's easy to move through the phases. If you solo, it still can move through it, but now you got to be disciplined and you got to be committed. So, nope, I'm not going to get them shoes. Nope, I'm not going to get that cologne. Nope, I'm not going to take that trip. Nope, I'm not going to that concert. Why? Because I'm trying to move from net zero to working poor, from working poor to financially independent and ultimately financially free. And I promise you, I feel like everybody can be a millionaire in 5 years if we use these 6 stages and then my other 3 phases of turning income into capital and capital into wealth.